Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Round Table. My name is Clement Ogaro, and tonight's program will pay tribute to our teachers. Our focus tonight will address challenges in the classroom. To help me highlight the complexities of teaching and learning and the daily challenge that teachers must recognize and unravel during the course of their work, Jennifer Williams from the Bastille High School, Sylvester Dorr from the Cotton Thomas Comprehensive, and guidance counselor Eveline Huggins. We'll now take a break as we hear from our friends at Brimstone Hill before we dissect classroom management, learning styles, and behavioral challenges. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Explore the history of St. Kitts with a visit to the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. This 42-acre complex of fortifications has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Upon entering the fortress, you can choose to visit the gift shop and orientation center, where you can purchase unique, high-quality items at duty-free prices, or you can look in on the Fort George Museum, which boasts a collection of military and other exhibits unrivaled in the Eastern Caribbean. The breathtaking view of Brimstone Hill includes the mountain range and a view of several other islands on a clear day and of the sandy point bay that the fortress once defended. Visit us and really experience the history of St. Kitts. This venue will also lend an indescribable ambience to your wedding or banquet.
Looking for news online? Check out zizonline.com. Go to www.zizonline.com on any of your devices to find sports, local, regional, and international news, live radio, and TV. To stay in the know, like us on Facebook for ZIZ news and content on your newsfeed. zizonline.com, reaching you wherever you are.
Welcome back to the Round Table. And as mentioned earlier, we're talking to teachers here tonight. This is a very noble profession and brave as well, too, because of everything that is happening in the world today. We have two people here from the Bastille High School, and I'm sitting right in between them. As a former student of the Bastille High School, I feel very privileged to be here. But as you know, today is World Teachers Day, and our radio station today, featured people calling in to say, hello to their favorite teachers. The St. Kitts Teachers Union, though, they have a program of activities, not only just for today, but also throughout the month of October. So Jennifer, I'm going to give you an opportunity to let the folks know how active this St. Kitts Teachers Union is and some of the activities that they're going to be participating in throughout the rest of the month.
Okay, good evening, everyone. As Mr. O'Gara indicated, today is World Teachers Day, and we are working under the theme, Empowering Teachers, Building Sustainable Societies. On Saturday, we worshipped at the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Bastille, and then we moved into Sandy Point on Sunday, where we worshipped at the Emmanuel Methodist Church. And as indicated, today is World Teachers Day, and there were special assemblies organized for our retired teachers, where they were honored by our respective schools. Tomorrow, Tuesday the 6th, there is the 4th annual education consultation on parent involvement and engagement in education. On Wednesday the 7th, we host our cocktail reception for new teachers. And on Thursday, there is the 4th annual Excellence in Teaching Award, and it will be hosted this year at the Government House by the Governor General. And then on Friday is our long-awaited and exciting march and rally through the streets of Bastille. And when we congregate at the Independence Square, There is an exhibition on the education sector there. I'm just inviting all to come on out, participate, and celebrate with teachers this year.
So the activity on Friday, you said the march. What time does it?
It starts at 9 o'clock, and we begin at the CFBC area.
So in the Tamarind, the Tamarind Tree area. Okay, and this is for all schools?
All schools, all teachers in St. Kitts, and even the preschool teachers. They are part of the union as well, and they'll be with us celebrating and marching on Friday.
Okay, sounds like an exciting week of activities. Sylvester, I'm going to come to you now. You have, tonight you're going to tell us, some stuff about learning.
Learning.
And
learning styles.
Learning strategies, learning styles, or whatever it is. Okay. But you come from the Cotton Thomas Comprehensive. Give us a little background on what you do there and what Cotton Thomas Comprehensive is.
All right. Well, as you mentioned, my name is Sylvester Dorr. I'm the deputy principal at Cotton Thomas. And Cotton Thomas Comprehensive is, I think, the only school on the island of St. Kitts that actually deals with persons with disabilities and varying disabilities. As a matter of fact, somebody asked me about comprehensive. What does that mean? It actually, school encompasses all students. And that is from 4, sometimes even from 3. We see students, and they can actually stay with us up to age 21, based on the varying needs that we cater to at the school. I'm actually trained in deaf education. And that is my love, my area. And I also do computer, PE, some say all around. But as long as it has to do with, special education, I'm in it. And wherever the need, arises, I jump in and do what I can.
Okay. So we're going to come back and talk, a lot more about learning styles, learning strategies, not only from the student perspective, but also from the teacher's perspective as well. Evelyn, you're going to talk about behavioral. So you're the one who discipline or who recommend discipline. You know what? When I used to go to school, the discipline then was different to what it is now. But we'll get to that later.
Okay.
You're guidance counselor at the Bastia High School. What does that entail?
Well, before I begin speaking about being a guidance counselor, I would like to correct you that as a guidance counselor, we do not discipline.
You recommend discipline?
We don't recommend discipline either.
Okay.
After the principal or the year head or whichever teacher meets out the form of discipline that they feel is appropriate to the student after committing whatever behavioral infraction, then if necessary, they will meet with the guidance counselor so we could determine basically the causes and how we could avoid them falling into this trap of performing whatever behavioral infraction they did that will cause them to have been disciplined. So as a guidance counselor, we focus on student services. That is the center of our profession and our role. We cater to the students and offer support wherever we see fit and can provide that support.
All right, sounds like a very interesting role that you play. Jennifer, I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to start from the managing the classroom aspect, because I assume that must be an arduous task. Trying to, get yourself prepared for your students. So let me ask a basic question then. What should students expect when they arrive to class in the morning?
Well, after you've had assembly, be it a general assembly or classroom assemblies, we expect that the learning environment will be clean, it will be organized, it will be safe, so that effective learning and teaching can take place there. Now, in most schools, the desks and chairs are arranged in rows and columns. Sometimes you can change that depending on the activity that you're engaging in, but that's a general setting of the classrooms in most what we could determine as traditional school settings. Now, with respect to classroom management, for the teacher, this is the term that teachers use to describe the process of ensuring that the classroom lesson runs smoothly despite disruptive or behavioral challenges by students. It also implies the prevention of disruptive behavior or the process of keeping students orderly, organized, focused, attentive, on task, and academically productive during the hour and 15-minute session that's slated for what we term as double sessions, or a single session, which is half of that time. Now, as some of the adjectives that I've just used, orderly, organized, focused, attentive, on task, and academically productive during the 1 hour and 15 minutes, or the half of that time period, can be a bit challenging. And that is why it's important for us to be able to manage our classrooms and manage our time as teachers effectively.
And what about students who, and it could be one student or maybe a class that challenges your management skills? Does that in any way force you to probably look at different ways of dealing with the classroom situation?
Yes, sometimes there is one child who, for whatever reason, he or she may not have had a good night, they may not have been well rested, or there's some students who, depending on the subject area, they may not be focused in that area, and they just decide to come to school one day and just to be disruptive. And so as a teacher, we need to know how to manage that child and that sort of behavior so that it doesn't prevent the other students from learning. And sometimes we may have to put the child in the back of the classroom, or we may have to give the child a 5-minute time out. Before use, it's like we want, as teachers, you may ask the child to go outside. But we realize as of late that most of the time that is what they want. They disrupt the class because for whatever reason they want to go outside. So we try to eliminate that, because at the end of the day, they still have to learn.
Correct.
So we probably give them a 5-minute time out. And if the behavior is of such that it's unmanageable, we may have to escalate the matter to the principal's office, or as Ms. Huggins indicated, we may have to ask the guidance counselors to come in, liaise with that child to find out exactly what was the problem, why he or she decided to disrupt the class, and so that the behavior could be improved.
Okay. And of course, if you don't manage your class properly, Sylvester, then your learning styles can go out of whack. Now, in doing research for the program tonight, I came up on 7 different learning styles. So you're the teacher, I'm the student. So I'm going to ask, which is there any one particular style that fits, whether it's the class, the school, or, to take it even further, the country as a whole? Because, our background is totally different to some of the other countries. So I'm assuming that learning styles probably would be different.
Okay, well, when we're looking at learning styles, what we have to recognize, I think more and more now educators are recognizing that persons or students, they do not learn the same. And even as adults, we see it within ourselves. The way you learn a song might be to go line by line by line, learn it without the music, whereas somebody else have to listen to the music and get that rhythm going and get the beat. It's the same thing with the students. We have a situation where before in the classroom, it was regular, linguistic, where there was teacher use the chalk and go on the board and write out, and then the student would have to repeat and say it again and again and again. And we find that if the student does not learn in that environment, we say, well, that student is dunce, that student is not bright. But over a period of time, recognize that the same student might learn using audio-visual. If you put it in a song or you act it out, that same student might get it all of a sudden and say, wow, I understand. Whereas now I'm talking to you and teaching you the same thing, but I'm singing it and I'm acting it out, and you have like, what? I don't get it. But if I say, okay, here's it, read it. You read it through and say, oh, that's what I'm trying to say all the time. So we have to look at the fact that students learn differently, and we cannot put all of them in the same box or say, this is how we're going to learn today. I'm going to say it, you repeat it, and you're supposed to remember it.
But how do you handle, though, if you have, say, for instance, 15, 20 kids in your class, and you realize that there's, people
Different learning styles.
Different learning styles. How do you handle that?
What you have to do is mix it up, mix up the lesson. That is, as a teacher, you must know, okay, I have 2 students who are visual and 2 who actually need me to say it and they repeat it. And so breaking down the lesson, I have to put in an aspect where there's some audio visual, and then there's an aspect where I'm catering to the need of the other student. And so the teacher now has to be skilled in such a way that they're able to mix these 2 learning styles, for the class and group. At Cotton Thomas, what our teachers have to do sometimes is, for the one lesson, they have to write 3 different lesson plans, and they have to incorporate them in the classroom. And so even today, one teacher was saying, boy, this is a lot of work. And at the end of the discussion, she recognized that putting in that work, at the end of it, all of our students understood exactly what was being taught. And, that is what happens when you actually recognize that there are different learning styles, because had she not understood that, she would have gone with one style, and then Jennifer gets it, those 2 don't get it, and you say, them they're dunce. Jennifer is the bright child. And if you look in the past, we recognize that a lot of that was done because we used the one learning style, the chalk and talk. We are saying today, get away from the chalk and talk only. While some students may be strong in that, others need you to act it out, others need to see some visual audio stuff, others need to go out in the field and see exactly what you're talking about. When you're talking about the supermarket, take them downtown into the shop, and then they get it.
But how do new teachers coming into the profession, how do they get to that stage, though? Is this part of the curriculum, whether at CFB or for the teacher induction course? Are any of this stuff taught, or is it learned based on experience?
That's a good question. Seeing I'm not at CFB as a lecturer, I'm not too familiar with what happens there now. But I think, I've seen a number of the students from CFB that would have come to to Cotton Thomas, where they do a day, where they sit in a class, they look, see what's happening. And I know definitely that there are some components in the curriculum there that actually caters to varying learning styles, because educators, as I said, in recent times would have understood that indeed this is necessary. And I know for a fact that is being put into the curriculum at CFBC.
Okay, interesting thoughts, of course. And now I'm going to come back to you, Evelyn. You're dealing with the behavioral challenges that we have in our school, and in doing the research. They gave several different people, for instance, the chatterbox, the boycotter, the debater, the sulker. These are all people who forms part of every class. Now, is it the teacher's role to identify the people who would fit in each of these categories? Of course, the chatterbox, we know somebody who like to talk over and over again. or do you, as a guidance counselor, play an active role as well, sometimes within the class, sitting down and, taking notes as to what's going on?
Well, as you said, in every classroom, you would find all of these students, or the majority of the type of students that you have just listed. As guidance counselors, sometimes we do visit classrooms and take notes if it's requested. However, in St. Kitts and Nevis, guidance counselors usually have to teach classes.
Okay.
To teach health and family life education. And I've had experiences where I go to classrooms and there are always these type of students. It's not necessary that you go in to identify them, but in carrying out your lesson, you will recognize these students because they all exist. The chatterbox, yes, there will be that one child, or if you're lucky, 2 or 3, who will want to dominate conversation or dominate the class. Sometimes they just seem like they can't be quiet. Sit and be quiet. You will have that child in 1 or 2 classes who will challenge you. Particularly you find those children a lot in the upper streams as well. They will challenge you, challenge the information that you're giving them. You will have the circle. Who was the other one?
The debater.
Yes, the debater.
The person who challenges everything, the boycotter.
So it's my opinion that any teacher would recognize, maybe they won't have the labels for them, but you will recognize these type of students in your classroom. And you may, yes, you will group them as these are my challenging students in the classroom.
So, Jennifer, it looks like you want to get in on this topic. So I'll give you the opportunity because you have to manage these people in your classroom.
Yes, if I could add here, sometimes we look at those type of students as challenges in a negative way. But as a teacher, sometimes we have to, it's best if we know our students. We know who is the chatterbox, who is the sulker, who is the debater who wants to challenge you. And because once we learn who our students are, we'll be better able to manage our classrooms. Because if you know there's a disruptive child, disruptive in the sense that he or she chats a lot, then you know whatever activities you have, you may have that person be the one to organize group, speak more to the different children in the classrooms, those who challenge you. Because if you do not know your student, for some teachers, if you're inexperienced and a child questions everything you say, it can become annoying. Because even as a parent, if a child asks you, why, eventually you get frustrated and say, because I said so. You must do what I say. And sometimes there are some students who are divergent thinkers. They think differently. And we as a teacher, we may see that as a challenging behavior. We may look at that child as disrespectful and rude, but that child is not necessarily that way. But once you know that child, you've learned that child's way of learning, or that may be that child's way of learning, then you know how to deal with that child. And probably you could probably, after class, you could take the child aside and you question the child and you have a good rapport with the child and tell the child, and indicate to the child that I know that you may want to ask different questions, but you know you can come to me after, because you can't always be interjecting all the time because other students who are there, they may want to learn. But it's not necessarily that the child is challenging you. And yes, there are students who want to challenge the teacher, and some may get upset or offended. But sometimes I think either tell myself or even tell some of my colleagues. I could recall one of my experiences where when I first started to teach, and they were the Whittaker boys, Shane and Steve Whittaker. They were in the 5G1 classroom. And they see you coming in, you're a young teacher, they think that, they're going to test to see what you know from what you don't know. And I realized every time they ask me a question, it's like, I had an answer. So they say, okay, easy on this one, because you know what she's doing now. Because they want to feel you out, you know?
Yes,
to see whether or not how you're going to react. And you engage the sort of child, because that is the way they learn. And sometimes it beefs up the lesson as well, you know, in the class.
And it sounds like these were people who were recognizing a teacher. Well, okay, hey, this person is just coming from sixth form. I know they were a year or two older than me. So we're all in the same, of course, because I mean, I had the same thing. I mean, I had a teacher come back right after sixth form to teach me. Go ahead, Sylvester.
I'm listening here. I'm actually thinking, you know, a lot of the times we get calls at Cotton Thomas. I have a child in my class, I think he needs to be in special education. They ask why. He's just not learning, he's not behaving, he's disruptive. And again, I think it comes down to the same issue where they're just not meeting their learning style. And so because you're not meeting my learning style, I'm not engaged in your lesson, I'm not feeling this lesson, and so I'm just going to do my own thing here in the back. And the teacher gets frustrated, the student gets frustrated, and they say, well, the child is done. Again, it comes back, you're just not meeting the child learning style. And I mean, we find that in a lot of instances, because when we go and we evaluate and we see, well, okay, let's put something else in place, a different strategy, a different style. The child comes around and all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I'm enjoying the lesson. And so it has to do with behavioral management, managing the class, and understanding that each child might learn differently.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. We're going to hear from our friends at Brimstone Hill once more, and we'll come back talking to teachers about classroom management, learning styles, behavioral challenges, and all of that good stuff. Of course, don't forget that we'll have you join us in the second hour as well. You can call in not only to ask questions about what we're discussing tonight, but today's World Teachers Day, and so we will give you the opportunity as well, if you choose to, in addressing whatever concerns, issues, or questions you have, you can also recognize your favorite teacher. We'll be back on the other side.
Explore the history of St. Kitts with a visit to the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. This 42-acre complex of fortifications has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Upon entering the fortress, you can choose to visit the gift shop and orientation center, where you can purchase unique, high-quality items at duty-free prices. Or you can look in on the Fort George Museum, which boasts a collection of military and other exhibits unrivaled in the Eastern Caribbean. The breathtaking view of Brimstone Hill includes the mountain range and a view of several other islands on a clear day, and of the sandy point bay that the fortress once defended. Visit us and really experience the history of St. Kitts. This venue will also lend an indescribable ambience to your wedding or banquet.
Hi, how are you?
I will take the strawberry.
The Barry family, they're gonna love this meal. Cooked with a lot of love and a lot of natural ingredients.
Do you want me to be your chef?
Disrespectful student.
Good evening again, and welcome back to the round table. Looks like we were caught unawares there. We were deep in conversation, trying to, get some more facts out for you. But Evelyn, I'm going to go to you because your role as a guidance counselor is a lot deeper than just having to deal with people who chat a lot in class or who like to challenge the teacher. So, I mean, tell us about some of the practical stuff that you guys have to experience on a daily basis.
Okay, well, I would say, being in a high school, the majority of teachers probably have dealt with students who they simply deem as having a bad attitude, disregard for authority. They have poor communication, and you see it within the interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers. Lack of readiness and preparation for school. You have students who have difficulty paying attention. You see them fidgeting or moving around or not completing assignments. As guidance counselor, more often than not, these are the type of students that are referred to us, more so than the chatterbox or the debater, unless the debater becomes disrespectful, that's when it would get referred to the guidance counselor. As counselor, what we try to do first and foremost is to determine the cause of these type of behaviors. And many times it's the home environment that contributes.
Because I was just about to ask that question though. How and apparently you're going on to address it. How do you deal with, I mean, you know, cases where you know something is happening at home and now you have to take it outside of just the school premises to the parents?
Well, as I said, it depends on the actual cause. Say, for instance, if it's a home situation, home environment situation, or the actual physical living conditions contribute to a child's poor attitude, lack of readiness, then we have agencies and services outside of education that we will refer that could help us address some of these challenges, and then as guidance counselor, you assist the child in coping with. How do you cope in a more conducive manner with these challenges so that it does not affect your attitude and behavior in school? Because when you think about it, as adults, we have difficulty sometimes compartmentalizing issues that we have personally. If we have a spat with a spouse or our children, you may take it out on your colleague, or you come to work with a different attitude. So imagine the child, a teenager, who doesn't really know how to regulate or manage emotions as yet, coming into school to have a teacher giving them work and possibly not catering to their learning styles. This is how they would act it out. So as I said, as guidance counselor, many times you have to determine, before you can move on with a child, you determine what is the source of this behavioral problem. And
very interesting, you know, conversation there. Sylvester, I'm going to go back to you. And I mean, you deal with students who have disabilities, and you know, I think we need to get to the point where people understand that disabilities are not always physical. There's a lot more to disabilities than just, you know, seeing somebody, I mean, you know, walking with a limp or whatever it is. How do you, you know, deal, I don't know, how do you accommodate students who have, you know, any kind of learning disabilities, be it physical, emotional, or anything?
Okay. Let me just go back a bit.
Okay.
Dealing with that particular issue, as you said. A lot of persons, when they think special education, when they think disability, they think physical. As a matter of fact, you know, when persons visit or they come by the school and they look at a child, they say, so why is that child up here? Nothing wrong with him, nothing wrong with her. I say, what do you know? They say, he walking good, he talking good. I know him, he live in my neighborhood. Yeah. He up and down, nothing wrong with him.
Well, I know one of them who is just like that. And I mean, you know,
he was
part of the Olympic team as well too. But go ahead.
Right. And so persons look at the physical, but it's a lot deeper than that. When we're talking about learning difficulties or special needs, it's either, you know, most of the time it's something neurological, or, you know, the brain does not function like the quote-unquote normal person. And so the way they learn or the way they, you know, are educated must be different, because whereas it may sound simple to say 5 + 5 = 10 for the regular child or for the adult, somebody coming into our school and looking at a, say, 15-year-old, and that child looks normal, sounds normal, but they cannot spell their last name, you wonder, well, that child dunce. And that is totally different, dunce, as opposed to having a disability. The brain is wired in such a way that they cannot comprehend or they cannot understand the way. So what we do at Cotton Thomas is, because of a training, we're able to put in place certain strategies, certain techniques, certain styles of learning, or accommodations rather, for these students. And so we, as you know, a teacher can just get up and say, okay, come let me teach you today. For the special needs child, something else has to be in place. You have to know exactly what is wrong and how to accommodate for that disability.
So how do you, at Cotton
Thomas,
what is the setup then for students? I know in the high school, it pretty much goes by age. So if you're a certain age, you're in first form, second form, and you know, you move on accordingly.
Okay.
What is the setup? Because this must be something that you have to deal with, where, you know, some people are a little bit slower than others, you know, based on the type of disability that they're dealing with.
Yeah, for us, there's no kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. And persons will come and say, what class my child in? So we have to bring them into the system and say, come, spend a couple of days and see exactly what's happening. The grouping is according to, well, it's a bit technical because it's according to their ability and also their age group. And that is what makes it difficult, because whereas you have, say, a 9-year-old who is learning disabled and they're possibly on the same level as a 16-year-old, you cannot put them in the same classroom because of the age disparity. That will also have a psychological effect on particularly the older one. And so we have to put all these into consideration. But for the most part, it's based on their ability. So we have readiness, we have early stimulation. That is the younger ones who come into the system, the early stimulation. And then we have the older ones who are, as it were, getting ready to go to work. The vocational, where they do job training, they go on site for you know, interviews, how to change and to do banking, how to collect the money, how to change the money, how to spend, how to, you know, organize themselves as independent citizens. And so at that older group, that is the vocational.
So is the teacher training different for someone who wants to come to Cotton Thomas?
Yeah, the teacher training is different. It's special education training, and there's just a small component of it here at our local teachers college. For most of us who are trained at the unit, we had to go overseas to get that training. It's not fully...
Is it available in the Caribbean?
Yes, it is. It is available in Jamaica, in I think Barbados does some, and Trinidad. Special education.
And is this through the University of the West Indies?
Yeah, through the university, but there's Michael Teachers College in Jamaica.
Okay, so there's private colleges as well.
Private colleges as well, yeah.
Okay. All right, Jennifer, I'm going to come back to you, because you're dealing with, you know, the classroom management. And I'm sure you must have some kind of behavior management plan, something that has to do with rules, consequences, rewards, etc. How do you deal with that?
Well, for most classes, there are certain rules, regulations, or guidelines that the students are governed by. We try to encourage students to be respectful to each other. If there is a question that they wish to ask, or if there is a response to a question that the teacher is asking, you indicate by showing your hand, and you wait until the teacher acknowledges you, and then you say what you have to say. Now, oftentimes that may not be conducive to some students, because there are some students who think, because my hand is up, I'm supposed to just start to blurt out the answer. And we have to teach them that not because your hand is up, you have to blurt out the answer, you'll be given the chance to monopolize, because there are other students in the classroom who will never put up a hand. So you have to give each person a chance. Now, if, as you indicated, there are disruptive behaviors, you have avenues to deal with that. You could probably speak to the child, you give a warning, and you indicate to the child if you disrupt the class again or if you disrespect someone, this is what is going to happen to you. So they recognize that for every action, there is a consequence. And if you do something, there is a consequence to that action. If you, for means of reward, there are some students who get a joy for whatever reason in assisting the teacher. So if a child is well behaved, or if you realize a child worked well, for some teachers you might give them a smiley face. Some teachers, they might give you probably a drink or a chocolate bar or something like that. Not that you're bribing the child, but you want to encourage good behavior, you know, so you can do that as well. As we try as much as possible, even though in the high schools we beat, it's not the teachers want to beat, but there are some persons who, that's the only means of correcting certain behavior. But before we reach that stage, we counsel a lot, we talk a lot, we admonish them, we plead with them, we beg. The only thing we don't really do is literally go on our knees to beg them to behave in the classroom before we administer certain punishment. But generally speaking though, if you are going to manage your class as a teacher, apart from just being a new teacher or an inexperienced teacher, because while my colleague here was speaking, things came to me, and I mean, as a person in the special learning unit, it may be very difficult to manage a class because you have so many different learning styles. It means then, as a teacher, you have to know how to multitask. You have to know which child or the type of learning that child may encounter. You have to know what activity is best for this child, the interests of this child, and it is mind-boggling actually. In the what we will consider a quote-unquote normal school setting, where you have, yes, those students have challenges, but they're not as severe or overt as those at the Cotton Thomas Comprehensive. And so in order for us to manage that sort of behavior, we have to plan. And while we're planning, we take into consideration, or we should take into consideration, the different learning styles. And there are, traditionally we have, at the end of the lesson, it is expected that students write or answer questions. Now, if you were to take into consideration the different learning styles, it is difficult sometimes for all students to do that. At the end of the lesson, it's expected that 75% of the class will be able to write a paragraph on this or that. So, if we take into consideration the different learning styles, this child may present his response in a picture because he's a pictorial learner. Some students may write a poem or do a skit, where the others may write a paragraph or something like that. So once we're able to understand the learning styles of the child, once we're able to accommodate that learning style, it's not always easy because resources, it's a challenge that we face. And sometimes because there's a lack of resources, it's sometimes difficult to manage well in your classes, but we impress upon teachers to at least try their best to control, to manage their classroom despite the challenges that we encounter. But we encourage them to plan, take into consideration different learning styles, and so that they're better able to manage their classroom.
All right. I'm going to come back to you with that because it's very interesting. You mentioned two things in there that I'm interested in. You spoke about punishment in the form of lashes. In high school, I just can't imagine that happening in 2015. I mean, you know, come on. Show me the student who got lashes last week.
There's some of them who get lashes every day if you will.
Today. But yeah, no, as it relates to the behavioral, you know, aspect that we're dealing with for you, Evelyn. Now, I know you said that you deal with outside agencies as well that, you know, make recommendations for students. Now, I mean, do we really have bad cases here in St. Kitts?
Yes, we do. I mean, like every other country, St. Kitts is a victim of all sorts of social ills. I mean, not all teachers are usually not privy to the dirty details of what's going on in every child's life. But there are students in schools who are living in some unimaginable conditions and dealing with some situations that sometimes I myself as a guidance counselor think this child is a very tenacious and strong child, because if I was in this situation, I don't know what I would have done with myself. So yes, we do have situations and students experiencing some real bad situations where we do have to go to the outside agencies for them to offer their assistance. Many of the behavioral challenges that teachers experience with students in their classrooms have to do with family dynamics, what they see at home, how they're allowed to communicate, the type of communication they see between their parents and their parents' friends, their siblings. I mean, all of us are socialized. It's as if, particularly at Bastia High School, for instance, we have a large population of immigrants from the Dominican Republic. I think we have the largest population of students
As a high school here
as
in
a high school
St.
here
Kitts.
who are Hispanic. And most teachers are sensitive to the fact that they're coming in from a different culture, so they approach them differently. And it's the same way that each child comes from a different culture, because each family has their own culture. They're socialized a particular way. And when you have students with certain behavioral challenges, for instance, you may find them disrespectful because of how they speak to the teacher. But that is how they speak at home. So one of the challenges we have is trying to unlearn a behavior now and teach them, because Miss Williams, as Jennifer was saying, that there's a child who you encourage them to raise their hands before they speak. But to them, they don't understand that if they hand up, I'm supposed to speak. I'm not supposed to be acknowledged before I'm speaking. And I could see how that could pose a problem for teachers. They see it as a major challenge because this child may be disruptive, no matter how many times you say, well, Johnny, yes, I see your hand, but wait for me to acknowledge you. At home, they don't have to. They don't have to speak when they're spoken to, or acknowledge the present, acknowledge that maybe this isn't the time for me to do this or whatever. Some students have no accountability for anything at home, or no responsibility at all, or maybe too much responsibilities. So we also, as teachers, have to basically consider the fact that each student comes from a different culture, so you have to tailor how you approach students. And most times when you tailor your approach, you get across to them better. I mean, as simple as how you communicate with them, not even delivering a lesson, but just how you communicate with them on a whole could make a difference.
What about cases that are referred to external agencies? Is there a way for the school to still stay in contact with the situation with the student? Because I'm assuming that this is somebody who probably will have to return to school at some point in time.
When students are referred to external agencies, it's not necessarily that they are taken out of the school setting.
But you do have cases where people are taken out of the school.
Yes, we do have cases when they're taken out of the school. But the majority of the cases when they are referred, depending on what they're referred for, that agency will deal with that aspect of it. And as a school, the guidance counselors will just offer support for the academic portion. How are they coping in school with whatever home situation that is being addressed by social services or whatever other agency is there to offer assistance or alleviate the problem that they're experiencing.
Okay. So, Jennifer, I'm going to go back to you. Of course, we talk about the guidance counselor working with the students. Who works with the teachers? I mean, the teachers must have their issues as well.
and that is interesting because sometimes we're saying, and as you just said, we have issues as well. We need counseling, and there isn't anyone there who really counsels teachers. We would have to, I guess, go to our private counselors, but there isn't anyone really there.
The guidance.
Who really counsels teachers, I guess, right? But sometimes, I guess, if you have a challenge, and it all depends as well on your level of maturity too, because we live in a society where we feel most of us who are not somewhat enlightened, we grew up in an era where you have an issue, nobody needs to know that you're going through anything. You deal with it on your own. However you deal with it, you deal with it. But we realize that even as teachers, even as adults, we need someone to whom we can speak and with whom we can speak. Because sometimes we have issues and we think that we are dealing with them, and actually, when we speak to someone, we really didn't handle that situation well. And because of that, we may have encounter challenges with students. So we really need someone, I don't know if we want to specify a particular person or group of persons to whom teachers can address their issues.
Maybe this is something that the teachers union can
maybe
take
we really
up,
need to look into that.
Because I think that this is because you have to provide a service to these kids, their parents, their family members, who actually, dependent on you to impress upon their child, how important education is, and, make them something. Some students are, proud of their teachers or whatever it is. So, you want to be working under less pressure as well.
Yes, stress kills.
Okay, so we're right up against the 9 o'clock hour. We're going to take a break. We're going to hear from our sponsors, and we're going to come back with some more. And we're going to ask you, of course, to join us at 466-2666. And for the folks who are listening on radio, I know you're a customer calling our 2555 number, but you have to call the television studios if you want to get on with us tonight. That number is 466-2666. We'll be back with more from our teachers in St. Kitts.
Explore the history of St. Kitts with a visit to the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. This 42-acre complex of fortifications has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Upon entering the fortress, you can choose to visit the gift shop and explore the history of St. Kitts with a visit to the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. This 42-acre complex of fortifications has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Upon entering the fortress, you can choose to visit the gift shop and orientation center, where you can purchase unique, high-quality items at duty-free prices. Or you can look in on the Fort George Museum, which boasts a collection of military and other exhibits unrivaled in the Eastern Caribbean. The breathtaking view of Brimstone Hill includes the mountain range and a view of several other islands on a clear day, and of the sandy point bay that the fortress once defended. Visit us and really experience the history of St. Kitts. This venue will also lend an indescribable ambience to your wedding or banquet.
Look at this. Somebody come look at this.
With sports and entertainment lives. Can't improvise cause there's so much inside. So, fashion is style, word on the street will make you smile. People show youth awareness, interest in just fashion cause it, and many more that you cannot resist. Now, for young and old, it's not my show, that's how we roll. What's up? What's up?
Welcome back to the round table. And you know, I wish sometimes that I could tell you, the audience, what we discuss during the breaks, but hey, certain things are only for private consumption, even here on the round table. Don't forget that you can join us now at 466-2666 if you have questions, concerns, issues, or if you simply just want to, you know, big up your teacher at this particular time. Sylvester, I'm going to go to you. I'm checking to see if whether or not we have a call coming through. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Yeah, good evening. Just one or two quick comments and questions.
Okay, caller, can you hold on just 1 second? All right. Now you can go ahead. We're hearing you now.
Right.
Good. Go ahead.
I think as the moderator, you need to understand that World Teachers Day, World Teachers Week, World Teachers Year, if you please, is not about identifying, recognizing, or commending one's favorite teacher. I think you need to cease and desist from making that comment immediately. The question of World Teachers Day is for one to pay homage, as it were, to those teachers whom he thinks has done human service, has made a sterling contribution to the development of education. It has nothing to do with recognizing one's favorite teacher. Matter of fact, a number of teachers who do an excellent job are nobody's favorite teacher, and very many persons do not have a favorite teacher. And so the idea is that one recognizes and applauds and commends teachers who have done a good job, nothing to do with favorite. That's a comment. The other thing is that with respect to the matter of learning styles, I think if the truth be told, we will be honest and admit that this is just a lot of rhetoric which we are spouting with respect to this particular concept. Because in truth and fact, students really, their learning styles should be properly accommodated or as best as possible in the teaching learning environment. What in fact obtains in some kids and perhaps throughout the Caribbean and many parts of the world to the detriment of the students is that instead of teachers responding to and accommodating the learning styles of the students, students are forced and obliged to adapt and try to learn as much as they could from the teaching style of the teacher. And so, as opposed to the focus being the learning style of the student, what in fact runs the gamut of the education system is that it's the teaching style that dominates. That's another comment. The question I want to ask of all three panelists is this. How do you measure success, not just in education generally, but in your particular area of operation within the education sector? How does Ms. Williams, how does the guidance counselor, how does Mr. Doe, how does each one of you measure or determine that you have been successful in the execution of your duties as teachers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. And what we're gonna do is we'll take notes and we'll get back to answering some of the questions. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Pleasant good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Great program as usual.
Thank you.
Yeah, my first question is to Sylvester. At what point did you decide this was your calling to be a special ed teacher? And follow-up question. Sometimes the general public don't understand children, and they may become physical abusive to the children. Sometimes the children may become physical abusive to others. How prevalent is it in our society? And for the others, how difficult it is to deal with children on a daily basis from different home environment, where some homes lack strict discipline and where the community are missing in raising the children. And final one, during parent-teacher meeting, is it still lacking the fathers or male attendance and the parents who really needed to be seen are absent? Thanks.
All right, thank you very much for your call. Again, our number is 466-2666. And I think I was chastised by the first caller. I think he completely misunderstood what I said. I mean, I never said that Teachers' Day was World Teachers Day was about, hailing up your favorite teacher. But if you want to, call us, you're free to do so. You're free to do. I don't know if that I have a favorite teacher, but hey, we'll take this call. Good evening. Welcome to the round table.
Yes, good evening.
Yes.
This question to Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, I realize that a lot of things have changed towards teachers. In basically the way how they dress towards the school, coming to school. We realize that a lot of young teachers were around. Back then, you had to be really a teacher, you have to follow the rules and regulations in dress code. I realize a lot of teachers you find who just done with college doorways, especially, doorways in some tight skirt, or into school. You have some maybe, nails are long, a lot of maybe facials, jewelry. Don't you think that the old-time days need to come back the way how the teachers them carry themselves towards the student them in school? And the other question is, what is like towards the student them and the teachers them, what is feeling like towards the atmosphere in what happening with Berkeley High School, with the situation that, some are here, some are there. What is feeling like you're getting from teachers and students?
All right, Carla, thank you very much for your questions and contribution. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions, and I think the first caller basically read my mind because we were talking about during the break, where we're going to go as it relates to do you teach for people to learn or at the end of the day to get measurements that, will make your stats look good?
Okay. Well, I can speak to that because if we are to look at, what happens in the high schools in preparation for final exams, or even in the primary schools with the test of standards, the aim, any teacher will tell you that the administrators are on their backs to teach the curriculum so that the students can pass. It's about what percentage passed. Is it a high percent? Is it a low percent? And even if we look at all the statistics, it's about which school did the best, which students did the best in terms of, passing their exams. And I think if that remains our main focus, we'll continue to lose a lot of our students. Why I say that? Because, again, if the learning styles, that is and as the caller said, the teaching style, if the student is forced to adapt to the teaching style, which in most instances is that of linguistic or talk and chalk, and those are the ones that, have this learning style, those are the ones that are catered to, those are the ones that are pushed, and the others are left on the back burners. We have what we have now is that the bright ones and the dunce ones, the bright ones succeed. The focus I'm seeing it changing over time with the introduction of new subjects into the performing arts, into the physical education and so forth. And as we incorporate these, I think our society on a whole will change because we need to accept more vocational, type subjects. And at Cotton Thomas, and I can speak to that, the focus is never on, what percentage pass or whoever. Our aim is to, as it were, help the students to be to lead as independent a life as possible, to be contributing citizens of our country. And the caller asks, how do we measure success? Is at the end of the program, are they able to work? Are they able to live independently? Are they able to sustain themselves without having to run back to the school or to run to mommy or daddy? Are they able to take what they would have acquired as an education at Cotton Thomas and now produce for themselves and live as independent, a life as possible. And that is always our aim and focus at CTC.
And one of our callers asked a question directly to you as well.
How did you know
this was your calling?
I don't think I ever had it as a calling. I actually fell into special education by a sort of an accident. People always ask me. I used to work at the port, and even in high school, going home from high school, I used to pass by the Red Cross, and they used to house the school for the deaf. And so, being the curious and fast individual that I am, I used to go by and say, what are them people in there doing? What is that? And I would go by every afternoon, and as I stopped by, they welcomed me, and I learned the language. And then a teacher left, and I was basically one of the other persons who they knew to sign in. And they called and said, "Are you interested in a position in working with the deaf?" And I said, "Okay, sure, why not?" And that was it. That was my dragging into special education. I've been there ever since, went to study in the field, and that's just it. I love what I'm doing, and I enjoy, and I continue to do it.
And Ms. Williams, somebody asked about dress.
Okay, that's somewhat of a ticklish question. Personal choice. Now, the caller indicated whether or not we should go back to the way things were then. Now, as education reforms, as society changes, styles and opinions and fashion do also change. You have climate change as well, and depend on the environment in which you work, you may dress a particular way. Now for teachers, yes, it's a profession, and all teachers are expected to dress professionally. Now with respect to the tight skirts, tight is, for me, relative. Because there are skirts or even dresses or pants that are form-fitting. For someone, they may describe that pant or skirt or dress as tight. Depending on your body type, I may wear something and it may look tight to someone. Another body type, it may look loose or form-fitting, or what the caller may want to suggest as the correct way to dress. Now, we have to also bear in mind that your persons are individuals, and you have your right also as an individual to a certain type of dress with respect to the governing rules and regulations of your employer. I don't really think that we should go back, because it means then that we are not moving forward. Yes, there are certain things that we can learn from things that happened then, but things are changing. People have changed, circumstances change, situation change, education is changing, and it has changed and it will continue to change. Now, the caller also mentioned nails and so forth. That's a personal choice. Because if my thing is, unless you're not into food preparation, your nail shouldn't prevent anyone from learning, or shouldn't hinder students from learning, or your nail doesn't add or detract from the learning environment. I can understand if you're in, as I said, food preparation, there are certain stipulations because you're dealing with food and the whole issue of things being on your nail, germs and whatever and so forth. But for me, it's a personal choice. Now, I think way back when, and even now, male teachers are expected to wear long shirts and ties. Some, if they don't wear the tie, they were told to wear the jack shirts. But come on, this is 2015. Which young male teacher is going to really wear a jack shirt? We have to be realistic. And the conditions under which we are working, we're not working in quote unquote air-conditioned environs. Now, at present, it is extremely humid. And yes, there are teachers who wear the long shirts. There are some persons who are comfortable with ties, and they have no problem. But I really don't see any problem with if a teacher wears a dress shirt, what we call a dress shirt, without a tie, because a tie could be deemed as a weapon. You have a child in the classroom who decides to grab the teacher by his tie and could cause injury, you know? So we have to be practical. If it's a personal choice, yes, because there's some persons who are comfortable wearing a tie, I have no problem. But I am not going to say that because you're not wearing a tie, you're not properly attired.
But there are standards.
Yes, there are standards, and teachers, all principals and deputy principals and so, they encourage teachers to adhere to the standard, the code of dress stipulated by the ministry. You know, but at the end of the day, it's a personal choice, and unless a teacher is really outlandish in his or her dress, as long as you're properly covered, you're comfortably dressed, it's respectable, no body parts protruding and showing, because depending on your body type, as I indicated, whatever you wear depends on your figure, your shape. Somebody would always have a problem with how somebody, just because it's a personal choice.
Yes. All right. And callers, you can still give us a call at 466-2666, just in case you want to weigh in on any of the topics we're discussing tonight. Someone mentioned Evelyn. I'm sorry. Someone mentioned the lack of fathers at the. I'm assuming they meant the PTA meetings, or just involved in the child's life, school life. What about that?
What I remember from that call is him asking, do the parents who you want to see show up to the meetings? More often than not, they don't. And it goes back to when we're speaking about challenging students and students with behavioral challenges, that's why we speak about, we look at, for the cause, the family dynamics, the home environment. Many times, what causes some of these students to act out is either inconsistent parenting or lack of parenting on a whole. And then the lack of parenting or neglect will definitely spill over into how involved is the parent in the school life. For instance, you have a child who is disrespectful. And when you do your research, you realize that this child is basically raising themselves. The parent is hardly ever home. It is somewhat, I don't want to use the word expected, but you are not surprised when teachers go to a PTA ready to speak to this parent about the challenges they're experiencing with this child, and the parent isn't there. Because then you could make a connection, oh, so this is why this child exhibits this type of behavior. So yes, you do have still parents who you really want to see, and you have to run them down to find them. The question about the fathers. Yes, we have many situations where you have a difficult, let me not use the word difficult, but a child posing a particular challenge in terms of their behavior, and when you get down to the root of it, it's some sort of daddy issue. I could recall before I was a guidance counselor and I was teaching at a particular high school, I had a student, and he was one of the more difficult students. Always disruptive, running from class, not poor academic performance and all of that. And one day his father came to visit the school looking for his homeroom teacher, and I so happened to be there. And the father began talking. And with all of the long conversation, lengthy conversation we had, it opened up my eyes to why this child was behaving the way it was. And for me, that was like I was 18 at the time. A defining moment for me is that you just can't look at children and deem them as, put them in a box. Because each child has their own situation. And my heart went out to this child. And of course, my approach changed when dealing with this child. So, and I'm strained, but teachers need to also consider being more empathetic to children. You can't just look at a difficult, because, I mean, we're human, and many of us think, I used to think like this, sometimes you prefer a classroom with a certain child out of it, because you get your work done much better. But yes, we have to be more empathetic and think about these children, home environments. If these children do not come to, if the parents don't come to the PTAs, then you have to go and look for them.
Okay, interesting conversation there, and I think it's all pertinent. But we do have a couple of callers who are trying to get in, so let's welcome in the first caller. Good evening, welcome to the round table.
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
My name is Mr. Hendrickson, and I'm calling in asking about the fifth farmers' condition. How are they treated currently up here at the Bastia High School? How are they treated, seeing that this is their last term, their third term, doing CXE exams and so on? That is my question.
All right, thank you very much. Concern about the fifth farmers at the Bastia High School. We have a second call? Okay, go ahead, caller. Welcome in. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes.
Firstly, I want to commend the panelists. I want to commend you all for this wonderful program. But though I commend, I have two questions. I just want to defer. I beg to defer just a little with my colleague on the left, by Mr. Sylvester Doe. She spoke about that teachers could dress anyhow. That point really startled me. I believe that the profession still holds high standards. They are still, if you're going to the highest organization or institution of the federation, the courthouse, one has to dress a certain way. And we've got to understand that teaching is not only going into the classroom, the hidden curriculum. We are teaching by our holistic, manner. When we enter the classroom, how we dress, etc., we are passing on. It's a legacy. We are pillars of the society. That's the first point I want to make. Now, my point is, we mentioned this evening, I think it was the moderator, Mr. Gawa, you mentioned this evening that you're still seeing people using the strap in the 21st century. My question is, there are different learning styles, and some students, they just don't comply. They only hear if you use the strap. My question, do we still perhaps the guidance counselor could address this. Do we still subscribe to using the strap? Do you subscribe in abandoning the abandonment of the strap, or do we still use it? And perhaps in her answering, she might be able to differentiate between discipline and punishment. Are my questions clear?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you very much for your contribution, though. We definitely appreciate that. And we are open to take more callers. And now he did mention there was a couple of questions. Fifth farmers at the Bastia High School. Not sure what they were referencing to.
With all due respect to that caller, we are not here to discuss anything pertaining to the Bastia High School. This is World Teachers Day. Yes, we know that they're students, and as teachers, we are supposed to educate them, but we are not really discussing anything with the Bastia High School. But the students at Bastia at the fifth form level, they're being taken care of, they're being taught in an environment that is conducive for learning. Now, with respect to the previous caller, I didn't say, or I can't recall ever saying that teachers should dress anyhow. I said they dress in a comfortable enough manner, and they still adhere to the rules and or the guidelines of the profession. Now the caller, I think he alluded to the fact that the first one who made mention of going back to how teachers dressed in years gone by, and I indicated that fashion has changed. I'm not saying because fashion has changed we must dress any old how, but fashion has changed, the type of material that used, the style of dress, and so forth. That has changed, and that is what is out there. That is what we have to deal with. And so you, as a teacher, you try to select in a moderate way clothing that would be comfortable enough but still professional.
Yeah. And lots of people think that the climate has changed as well, too. So climate change becomes a very big thing. Using the strap. It's funny because, I don't know, I remember... and maybe that's why I was kind of a good student until the very end. Because we, back in my days at the junior high school, and I remember this specifically at junior high, long time ago. That's the Burden Street was where CFB is now. And when we did our exams, we got lashes for the subjects that we failed. And you know what? I don't know what it is to get lashes because I didn't get lashes at home. I didn't get licks at home. I think I was a pretty good kid. And so that was my biggest fear. And it made me work harder because I didn't want, the principal to come in my classroom. Punish me in front of everybody. So the caller was asking, is it punishment or discipline?
Well, the difference, in my opinion, between punishment and discipline. Punishment is where you're trying to control the child to the point where you're trying to stop a behavior in a controlling manner, and it's usually something negative. You administer some sort of negative stimulation to stop this behavior, whether it's verbally reprimanding a child using a lot of negative language, or being physical, slapping, hitting, using the strap, or withholding of rewards. Whereas discipline, you are trying to teach the child or empower the child to control their behavior. So it's a lot more positive. In terms of using the strap, I personally think that I see how it is effective in schools, but I do believe that there are more effective ways to change behavior. There are some children who get the strap daily at home to come to school and get it. It won't be effective. I'm pretty sure we all heard the term before, licks must cool. So it may not have the desired effect, because sometimes you see the same children coming in for lashes all the time. There are students still who, like yourself and myself, I behaved because I did not want the strap.
Exactly.
So yes, corporal punishment is outdated to some extent. However, it's still, I hope I'm not contradicting myself, but I can see where it does have a place in schools. But in an ideal world, if I ruled the world, I would do away with corporal punishment.
Okay, and I certainly understand, that premise. I don't know. I don't know if it has anything to do with peer pressure or. I actually read the eulogy at Calypso Reggie's funeral the other day, and we're going to take a break now. But I need to get the story out first. My most profound memory. Or my earliest memory of Calypso Reggie was him doing something at school. I don't know what it was. He got punished at school and was sent home. and his mom brought him back to the school and punished him in front of the entire, school. Of course, I'm not advocating, anything of that, but I thought peer pressure and everything has a lot to do with it as well, too, because you don't want, to be seen, getting a beat down from your mom, in front of all the other students. All right, so I'm pressured by my producers to take a break. So we'll take a break. We'll hear from Brimstone Hill, and then we'll come back for our last 25 minutes as we wrap up the program. And of course, you can join us too in this last half an hour at 466-2666. We'll see you on the other side.
Explore the history of St. Kitts with a visit to the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. This 42-acre complex of fortifications has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Upon entering the fortress, you can choose to visit the gift shop and orientation center, where you can purchase unique, high-quality items at duty-free prices. Or you can look in on the Fort George Museum, which boasts a collection of military and other exhibits unrivaled in the Eastern Caribbean. The breathtaking view of Brimstone Hill includes the mountain range and a view of several other islands on a clear day, and of the sandy point bay that the fortress once defended. Visit us and really experience the history of St. Kitts. This venue will also lend an indescribable ambience to your wedding or banquet.
I'm going to come back. Welcome back to the round table. And yeah, we're having some intense discussions here. I don't know. I think I'm getting misled by, my producers. And they're not counting down anymore, so I have no idea whether I'm on or off. But I know for sure that I'm on right now. And so let me go to you, Sylvester. I mentioned that we were going to, talk about this. Some people teach in different ways, and you're the person dealing with learning styles. Do we have a call? Okay, well, let's go ahead. We have 3 calls lined up. Let's take these calls, and then we'll try to get back to my question. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good night, Monarch.
Yes, sir.
And good night to the hard-working teachers, them there.
Mm-hmm.
Good night to the hard-working teachers, them there. I want to congratulate you all on this behalf of the Teachers Week. I want to wish all the best and continue to do a good job to educate our students, because without education, it will never be understanding, and you got to educate to get them to understand. Now, we tell all the time that you beat a child, you will make it come good. Sometimes you got to do different things. Because in this world now, this kind of world now, these children, very stubborn and stubborn. Sometimes you beat a child for his wrongdoing. Sometimes you make him more ignorant and make him feel like he want to fight you up and all. So I believe that sometimes you call them and you just try to nurture them and deal with them in a more better manner, and sometimes go to the beating and even rough them up sometimes, because sometimes they rough up people. Even on the work site, construction site, up here that I was by a construction site, and the boss man was there speaking to some workman. And you know, we getting on with the workman them, with the dirty words. I said, no man, you got to come better than that, man. I said, speak to young people. When you are done, you ask them, you young man, they're violent and bad. Man, you got to teach the man, teach the man the right way, man. You can't teach the man with all them dirty words. Oh, he don't want to do, he don't want this and he want that and he want that and he don't want the other. I said, where you going to learn? And this is the way that we think. Sometimes when we speak to the children, we try to beat them, they run away and they get more violent. Hey, wonderful program. You all have a wonderful night. God bless.
All right, thank you very much for the call. Good evening, caller. Welcome in.
Good evening, Mr. Garrett and your panel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm listening to you guys, and I tend to disagree when you're talking about punishment for children. I want to ask, I don't know if the teachers that have the answer. Y'all can remember what time that corporal punishment was abolished in the school? What year?
It has never been abolished.
In St. Kitts Nevis, you're referring to, caller?
Right.
I mean, has corporal punishment been abolished?
Not as far as I know.
Well, I mean, only the principal now allowed to flog the children.
Yes.
When that was abolished, that the class teacher cannot hit children. Because let me tell you all something. I call into several shows, and I talk about this thing. This thing is not working. And if people sit down and look at it, there's no improvement. But our children, they are so violent. They are so violent, they are hungry. Everything you can think about, right? And I don't care what nobody said. I believe in your class teacher flogging you when you misbehave. Because if you look at it, look the age range of the children that is involved in, this antisocial behavior. It's young 18, 19, and 20-year-old children, right? And Mr. Agarrel, and I can't help saying it, I've said it on several programs. I mean, when we were little, we were flogged by our parents, we were flogged by our school teachers. Now you're hearing child abuse. I agree, yes, and long ago, the old people, they used to, beat you with that kind of thing, firewood and that kind of stuff. I'm not denying that.
The frying pan included.
Exactly. But Mr. Agarrel, we never used to get all these modern, all these kind of antisocial behavior that we are having now when you're not beating the children. I keep saying this thing over and over and over again. We are not, we in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, we wasn't behaving like them when we used to get our licks. Now you're not beating them. Look what we are going through, and let me tell you something, it's getting worse. Nothing is changing, it's getting worse. So I think they need to bring this thing back. Forget about this thing about only principal must beat children. Man, look, when you misbehave, the class teacher has a right to beat you. Good night.
All right, thank you very much for your contribution. And we'll get back to address some of that a little bit later on. But we have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Welcome into the round table.
Good evening, Mr. Monarch.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to everybody around the round table.
Good evening.
I'm not taking away anything from the teachers' week. I mean, we love the teachers are there for us, the teachers are there for everybody. I'm just going to school. But on the program tonight, I find it was a little bit harsh on the lady when I call and ask about the Boston High School. Lady, the Boston High School is a serious concern. Because remember, it's teachers' week. And remember, it's not about the students then, but there's teachers who are teaching and are comfortable at the Boston High School. I love teachers. The son goes to school, when the decade and everything, in St. Kitts or in the world. The people who are supposed to get a lot of credit in this country, and we don't credit them, is the decade teachers. Because remember, my son come first home, he first place he right, first place he knows to tie shoes and all these things. But in fairness to the argument, the lady, I understand you're not dealing with the high school, but it's still going to be an issue because there's teachers at the high school who are not comfortable at this moment. There's students at the high school who are not comfortable at the moment now. So you can't just brush off the person and say, you're not talking about high school. It's all a part of the situation. I understand you got one college there, so maybe that's why you all are saying that. But one college can also face the heat. The situation is what it is. We understand where we are, how the situation gets there. Because one college was the ring leader. We can't run from the fact. And I'm saying you have to address all these things. Yes, we agree, it is Teachers' Week. But you can't just sweep under the table the high school situation, because it was never swept under the table from the beginning. Because everybody was very adamant, everybody was very serious about the condition of the school. So why now? We're just trying to think. I mean, we got to be serious. But keep up the good work, teachers. I love teachers because you're the one who deal with the situation. But this thing here needs to be, it is a very serious issue, ma'am. You have a good night, continue enjoying your teaching. But you know it is. Have a good night.
All right, thank you very much, caller. We do have someone else on the line. Good evening. Welcome to the round table.
Hello, good night.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, we're hearing you.
I would like to hear the teachers go back with the old time days with the dressing. I have a teacher live on my street, and the way she go to work, that can be a teacher. Short skirt, the makeup, like she's celebrating Christmas every year. Red lipstick, makeup, come on. As a teacher, you go like normal face. You don't want zombie. You go, the other day I see you, she gonna short Peter skirt. Come on, the skirts. She live right on the street, and she says she's a teacher. Come on, you don't want to be a teacher, and you go with short skirt. Wind blood, terrible, terrible. And this, we teachers that people man, we going to work, then we forget, then we pour. We need to go back in the old times days. We pour long pants, something. And the other thing with the makeup, oh Lord of mercy. The makeup, it make me feel like I want to ball. It's makeup. They have on all over the face, and the school children, they're going. And they're going to fish market. The school children. Thank you, good night.
Thank you very much. I don't know about going back to the old days. I think that people just need to be respectful. Good evening, caller, welcome.
Good night.
Yes, go ahead. We're hearing you.
Fine. This is Jason McLean Payne.
Okay, we're getting a hum on your phone. I don't know if you're close to your radio, TV, or computer.
No, I'm outside.
Okay, go ahead.
However, I'm saying that teachers need to be respected far more than they are being in this time, both from students and from parents. I am telling you about what I have seen and heard for myself, not what anyone said to me. There are a lot of children who are tremendously disrespectful to teachers. And I would go as far as to say many of them are encouraged by their parents, which should not be, because teachers, apart from a preacher, teachers have the greatest responsibility in every society, apart from a preacher. And it begins first with the teachers, because they are the ones that's shaping the society or the community. I said that because of many things that I saw before. As I said, I remember when I returned here from the United States, my daughter, no teacher decided to teach her, because she was real out, telling teachers what she had to say, and using abusive language and all these kind of things. I went to the school, and that's when I get to the school, that's when I found out what was going on. And I called her in the presence of the teacher, and I let her know, let me tell you something. I'm not your mother. I'm completely different. And you're going to start respecting teachers as long as I am in this country. And any one time I get a complaint about you disrespecting your teachers in this school, I will come here and I will tear your butt up in front of everybody. And probably she thought I was making a joke. And I got the occasion. And that one occasion I straightened her out, and she was straight from there onward. I say that to say this trap still works. It worked for me in school. Nalda Richards had me straightened out when I was going to school. And that same Joseph Holiday, there he was my class teacher. And he dealt with me in class. Nalda Richards was the principal, and if my class teacher never felt like dealing with me, they send me to him. And I am saying this trap worked for me, and it worked for a whole lot of people, and it can still work. Now I am not saying that everything that a child do, he or her should be lashed for it, because talking can do a whole lot to some children. But there are others, you could talk till you drop dead. They're not going to behave. So therefore they need a little strap here and there. And I'm hoping, like others, that they would bring back this trap. I remember just recently I was painting the school. Well, of course not here. In St. Martin, I was painting the school. And if you hear the profanity from the students in the presence of teachers, and no matter how the teacher tried to talk to them, it makes no sense. And I swear, if they were using some straps upon them, they would have been different people. They would behave.
All right. Hey, caller, I want to thank you very much. We have 2 more calls that we want to take before we close out. But thank you very much for your contribution. So we're going to take these 2 last callers, and then we'll wrap it up. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Yeah, just after mention, I'm spelling Mr. Amogaras.
Yes.
You know, the last caller, after I heard him, you know, that is why I called back, and that is exactly what I'm trying to say. And teachers should be respectful. You know, they did a tremendous amount of work in the classrooms, and students must learn to respect teachers. And that is why I said they need to allow these class teachers to start slanging the children, because it's the other way around now, you know, Mr. Agar, and the teachers them can testify to it. It's the other way around. Instead of the teachers beating the students, the students, they are banging the teachers today. It's the other way around.
Good.
I'm not going to take up any more time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for your call. And I know, hey, I mean, you know, there's a lot more to, you know, what happens at school that determines what the future is, I should say, for our kids. We have 1 more call on the line. This is our last call. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Teachers, it's good to have teachers. Teachers is good. Without them, what we will do? We don't have to bring back the old time dressing. That was then. This is now. But you can dress modestly. You wear skirt, you don't have to above your knee. Below your knee, I would say that's good. And the men, they push the shirt in their pants and put the belt around. But if it's a shirt so open, well, perhaps it makes that way. And teachers have to respect themselves, because they're teaching children, and what they see you do, they'll try to do as well. Even you're not teaching, you still have to, and you're going out or wherever, you still have to dress modestly. And be neat and tidy, and that is all. It don't need to bring back no style before. And according to the weather is warm, you don't need this car. It doesn't matter, you don't have to have a tie. There's nice shirts and look nice on people without the tie. You could wear the tie to church or so, but I mean, it's nothing so special, and they say to you, you must get a tie, you must. It's not a must. Just you dress respectfully, and you will be respected from the children and society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure we all know the biblical teaching that says, rend your hearts and not your garments. Directing that to anyone in particular. But all I say is, you know, respect is what we need. So here we are at the end of another round table. And we want to thank the callers for calling in and expressing their, you know, concerns, issues, asking questions of our panel in recognition, of course, of World Teachers Day, October 5th, and the extension of the activities by the St. Kitts Teachers Union. So we're going to go now in, not necessarily a chronological order, but we're going to start with Evelyn. Kind of just, you know, wrap up what we've, you know, spoke about tonight. Your closing thoughts.
Okay, my closing thoughts. I just want to admonish all teachers and individuals on a whole when we think about students or any child who exhibits any behavior that we deem challenging, that again we try to find the source. Before we judge, before we get frustrated, we try to find the source of the problem. And when one of the callers was speaking, well, a couple of them were speaking about going back to the old days and how children are now. A quote came to mind that I recall from an ancient Greek philosopher actually speaking about the children today. how they have contempt for authority, they're tyrants towards their teachers, and basically these scholars are saying when they were students, children used to behave. So everything is relative. When I imagine when I get old, I'm going to say the children back when I used to teach never used to behave like this. So we all have to remember that we were young once, but times are evolving, and as such, our methods have to evolve as well.
I certainly understand that. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to you, Sylvester, but I wanted you in your closing as well to, to address this question that I had as it relates to strengths and weaknesses. I mean, is it good, bad, indifferent to teach to strengths or weaknesses? Do I make you stronger by your strengths, or do I pull you up in your weaknesses?
Well, the way I'll tackle that is, as I said before.
I didn't mean it to be a difficult question.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not difficult. In terms of, as I said, we seek to have learners become as independent an individual as possible once they would have left. And I think when we look at independence, we have to look at how able or how capable is this individual, in terms of providing, in terms of working, in terms of, as it were, ordering his or her life in such a way from a day-to-day basis, that they succeed in life. And when we look at what they can do, it may be a strength, and if they can, as it were, count well, I'm just using generic, if they can count well, we may not wish to spend too much time on that, as opposed to can they clean, and you say, okay, well, we need to draw some more on cleaning and so forth. But it's about looking at it, I think, the cross-section and finding a balance.
More in a balance.
Finding a balance. It's not so much about, strengths and weakness, but making sure that they're able to do what they need to do to be independent at an acceptable level. And
your final rep.
I wish to piggyback a bit on one of the callers, which said that he thinks teachers actually use their teaching style and impose that upon the students. And that might be a good way to put it. I think we need to change that really and look at the learning styles of the students and recognize that within any classroom setting, be it the primary or high school, be it in special education, what have you, that individuals have varying learning styles. And so we have to accommodate for that so that each individual can be successful in his or her own right.
All right, well, thank you very much, Sylvester. And Jennifer, you get the final word. And can you just also go back over the activities for the rest of the week as well, for folks who may have missed it, because you're extending the celebrations of World Teachers Day through Friday of this week.
Okay, before I sum up, just to remind you, tomorrow at 9 o'clock, we have the 4th annual education consultation on parent involvement and engagement in education. On Wednesday the 7th at 7 p.m., we have the cocktail reception for new teachers. And on Thursday the 8th...
So all teachers not invited to that?
No, just persons, not students, those teachers
who are coming into the profession for the first time?
Coming into the profession for the first time.
Okay.
We warmly welcome them. Let them know how much of a privilege it is to be a part of this noble and auspicious body of teachers. And on Thursday, teachers are going to be awarded at Government House for the excellent job that they have been doing, and this is our 4th year in doing that. And we are going to be hosted by the new Governor General at Government House. And on Friday, we wrap up everything with our march and rally through the streets of Bastia. We commence at the Tamarind Tree at CFBC at Greenlands there. And when we reach to the square, there is an exhibition on education at Independence Square. Now, the issue of classroom management. Now, if you're going to be an effective teacher, for me, my thing is, an effective teacher is an effective manager. An effective manager is an effective teacher. And I would just like to implore all of my colleagues to try as much as possible to minimize disruptive behaviors, minimize distractions in the class, so that the students are more engaged, more involved. And once students are engaged and they are involved, then they would learn. Also bear in mind that there are different learning styles. And once we cater as much as possible to those learning styles, then teaching and learning will occur. Now, to piggyback on what one of the callers said, now, he made mention of his neighbor wearing, I guess, loud or bright makeup and short skirts. I would impress upon that individual to speak if he feels that that person is dressed inappropriately. I'm thinking that if the person is responsible enough, then he as a responsible neighbor could probably call the young lady aside and in a respectable way indicate to her, well, I think so and so, but I really don't think you can force people not to wear makeup if that's a person's individual choice. Yes, it could be loud to you, but if it looks so, just gently speak to the person, and who knows, he might see a change. But just to brandish, she's wearing short skirts and loud makeup, and you must go back to things way back when persons didn't used to wear makeup. Things have changed, and we all need to learn to respect individual changes and their choices.
All right, thank you very much. As you can tell by our discourse tonight, teachers face many challenges. Let's think of the unimaginable for today's teachers. They do not only need to be resourceful, adaptable, and knowledgeable, but they also have to be activists, professionals, capable of being discerning, imaginative problem solvers, able to deal with constant and relentless social, economic, and technological change. Also, for education to transcend mere schooling, it requires that students be recognized as full participants in the learning process as they come to explore and question the many and varied experiences that they encounter in the classroom and beyond. It also requires that their teachers are learners, are members of the community of practice that is mutually supportive and generous to its members. That information, of course, was taken from, so that there's no plagiarism involved, Teaching, Challenges and Dilemmas by Groundwater Smith, Ewing, and LeCornu. Next week, we will do a double take on the round table. On Monday, we'll debate breast cancer. As you know, October, which is my favorite month, my birthday month as well. We celebrate, or, we look at breast cancer. And so the folks from breast cancer will be here on Monday night, and then on Thursday night, we'll focus on the St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union. That's our show for tonight. Good evening.
Latin Festival in Cajola Cristado presents the 6th Annual Latin Fiesta. Sunday, October 25th, the place to be is Puerto for the Mexico edition, featuring